So the other day, I'm at this live show watching my old friend play, and afterwards she comes up to me and asks if I could draw a logo for her band. And when I showed her the final product, she was all stoked and then asked me what program I use, Photoshop, GIMP, Adobe. But actually, I use this app called Sketchbook and just my cell phone. I use the Galaxy Note 5, and it comes with one of these nifty little styluses that really makes drawing kind of fun. I'm in no way considering myself, like a graphic artist, or hell, if I'm using this app right. But nonetheless, she thought the process was pretty cool, so I thought I'd show it. By all means, you can feel free to like it, dislike it, share it, compliment it, critique it, do your laundry. I really don't care. But here's the process. Now I like to start with a basic blue outline to get a sketch of my drawing. Of course, I do a skull because they're easy and fast. And I try to make it look like me by giving it, my signature beanie and goatee and mustache. And of course, I wrap it up with my signature initials, Trailblazer Bob. Next, I'll switch it up to my pen tool, where I'll give it its final outline and try to be as precise as I can while going along and filling in all the fine detail. And here I switch it up to the pencil tool, where I'll make it a little more fine, drop down the opacity, kind of gives it more of a little bit of a hair look. And you'll notice here I'm just trying to give it a basic outline. Again, I'm not trying to fill anything in, just trying to catch my initial nastiness and scruffiness, my long hair and whatnot. And you know what, while I have that pencil out, I'm going to go ahead and start detailing it a little bit, giving it some more fine lines, and giving it a little more depth to it as well. My next step is to switch up to the airbrush tool, drop the opacity really low, and then just start working on shading. I have, again, I'm not trying to be a graphic artist, a professional graphic artist, but doing my best on where I think the lights and darks would go. I have a basic knowledge of the anatomy of a skull, so I use that and try to pretend what I've seen from like movies or pictures and adapt that to my drawing. And then of course dropping the size of the airbrush, changing the opacity to a little bit darker, I'm able to work with some finer details. Also adding just layer after layer. It's always easier for me to start light and work dark. Again, it's digital, so I could always push the back button, but it makes it easier when I'm adding little things like these blemishes, the shading to the eyes, and I have the privilege of zooming in, which helps out a lot. And again, just adding layer after layer after layer. I'm able to again darken the airbrush and get that finer detail, give it way more depth, make it look deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then here I'm going to make the opacity very light, the airbrush very big, and try to get some shading. Afterwards, I'm going to use a eraser tool to erase the airbrush from that layer, and it gives me a little bit of a darkness to a little bit of a tint to the skull itself. And I switch it back over to the pencil tool, where I'm able to darken the opacity now that I know where everything's going to be, and fill in the beard, the hair, start giving the skull a few more details, cracks in the nose, cracks in the eye. That all will play for more detail in the end. By then dropping down the opacity, but expanding the size of the pencil, I'm going to go ahead and give some detail into the beanie. Just giving it that a little bit of a pattern look to it, trying to have fun with my lines. I didn't know what I was going to draw going into this picture, so I just had to go with it. And again, I'm not trying to be a professional graphic artist. I don't know exactly where the shading is going to be or where exactly the lines are going to make sense. I just have fun with it. And in the end, I hope that it all works out, which in the most part it usually does. And you'll notice that, how I just tend to throw lines and dots in every random place I guess I can find. It all makes sense in the end because I had to plan a little bit more layers of shading, and of course I'm going to color it, which the coloring itself is going to have shading. So, and again, just playing around with brushes here, I try a smudge tool when I'm sure another tool could have sufficed, but just having fun here. Now it's time to start giving the piece color. So I'll use a pen, make the size really thick, and outline everything that I'm going to fill in, because I'm going to use a paint bucket to fill in the major colors. So I'll start with gray. Of course, my I got the forest green, a dark green. It's the color of one of my beanies for the beanie. Of course, my little logo, and then a off kind of yellowish tan color, I guess you can say, for the inside of the skull. Then I go ahead and color the ring by hand with the bright Trailblazer green that I love so much. And then I start working on the shading of the colors. I just change the saturation on the brown itself just to make it darker. It's a very simple technique to do. Again, I give it one layer, darken it, give it a second layer, 3 total. And then I'll do the same thing with the beanie. I'll pick the color with the color picker, I drop down the saturation, and just start giving it some random shading all over the place. And these next techniques I use is kind of like how I did the shading on the skull when I was working on the details. I'll add a layer, add a whole color or brightness over it, and then proceed to erase the excess of the layer that I don't want, giving it an initial shading or glow effect. Again, I'm sure there's simpler ways to do this, but I don't know what they are, so I don't care. I do what works for me. But here is where it gets interesting. So after you do the shading on the eyes, you can go ahead and throw that detail back on, the detailed layer, and look how pretty that looks. Now go ahead and add a little bit of an underglow, a little bit of highlights for the green light that you have underneath there, and finally you top it off with my signature. And there's the final product. I hope the process was as interesting for you as my friend made it seem. I'll go ahead and give a shout. No, I'm not going to do that. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. To each their own. Have a good one. Be safe. Happy voyages. Bye. And